Emily's roses were the pride of the neighborhood. Every petal glistened like a drop of morning dew, blooming in vibrant reds, pinks, and whites that seemed almost unreal against the manicured green lawns of Maplewood Estates. For years, her garden had been a quiet sanctuary, a splash of color in a sea of identical suburban houses. Neighbors admired it, and Emily took a small, satisfied breath each morning as she watered her beloved roses, the scent wrapping around her like a gentle hug. Life in Maplewood was peaceful. The HOA rules were strict but fair, and the community was close-knit. Neighbors greeted each other by name. Children played freely in the cul-de-sac, and weekend barbecues brought everyone together under the warm sun. But everything was about to change. The day Karen Bennett moved into the house next door, the air seemed to shift. Emily first saw her from the porch, a tall woman in a sharp blazer, meticulously supervising movers, hauling in boxes. Karen's smile was tight, her eyes cold and calculating, as if she were already judging everything within a mile radius. At first, Emily shrugged off the uneasy feeling. New neighbors were normal. But it wasn't long before strange things started happening. It began with subtle signs. The faint scrape of shoes on the sidewalk late at night. A shadow darting behind the curtains of Karen's living room window when Emily walked by. Once, she found a small note slipped under her door, written in harsh block letters. "Keep your garden in check. This is a neighborhood, not a jungle." No signature, no explanation. Emily's skin prickled with unease. Who was watching her? Was Karen behind this? Then came the noises. On sleepless nights, Emily would hear the crunch of gravel on the driveway. Faint voices hushed and urgent. One night, curiosity got the better of her. She peeked out the window just in time to catch a figure. Tall, slender, wearing dark clothes, slipping something into a trash bag. Behind Karen's house, the figure turned sharply, eyes gleaming in the porch light, but it was too dark to be certain. The next morning, Emily found small shredded papers tangled in her rose bushes. Confused and worried, she examined them closely. They looked like fragments of HOA notices, warnings she hadn't seen before. What kind of message was this? Who would sabotage her garden? And why? Her heart pounded as she stared out across the street. Karen was outside, calmly sipping coffee on her porch. But Emily caught the briefest flicker of a smirk before Karen's expression snapped back to cold neutrality. That night, the neighborhood's calm shattered. Emily woke to the sound of smashing glass. She rushed outside, heart hammering, to see a black SUV speeding away. Headlights blinding her for a moment, but it wasn't the getaway that caught her attention. It was the trail of broken rose stems and crushed petals left behind. The scent of her roses was gone, replaced by a sharp metallic tang. Neighbors appeared, murmuring worriedly, whispers of "Who would do this?" and "It has to be Karen," floated through the crowd. Emily's breath caught. She didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were falling into place. Something dark and dangerous had arrived in Maplewood Estates. And it was no accident. It started with her roses. As Emily knelt among the wreckage, her fingers brushing the shattered petals, she realized this wasn't just about a garden. It was a battle she never asked for, but one she was determined to win. The quiet neighborhood had become a war zone, and the enemy was closer than she thought. The morning sun filtered weakly through the thick gray clouds, casting a dull light over Maplewood Estates. Emily stood on her porch, still shaken by the night's destruction. Her rose bushes, once bursting with life, now looked like the aftermath of a storm. Twisted, crushed, and bleeding petals scattered like confetti across the soil. Neighbors stopped by, their faces a mixture of sympathy and suspicion. Quiet murmurs floated through the air. No one wanted to say it outright, but the suspicion was there. Karen Bennett, the new neighbor who had stirred the calm waters of their perfect little pond. Emily's phone buzzed with messages, texts from concerned friends, curious neighbors, and even anonymous notes warning her to watch her back. The tension in the community was palpable, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Still, Emily held her ground. That afternoon, she decided to visit the HOA office, hoping for some answers, or at least a hint of support. But the office was strangely cold. The usually welcoming receptionist replaced by a curt assistant who brushed off her concerns with vague promises to look into it. Walking back home, Emily noticed fresh tire tracks in the soft dirt beside her garden. Too close to the roses to be accidental, a sense of dread crawled up her spine. That night, her fears deepened. As the streetlights flickered on one by one, Emily sat by her window, eyes scanning the shadows. At midnight, a soft rustling came from the side yard. Heart pounding, she peeked outside to see Karen stepping out of the darkness, a large trash bag in hand. Emily's breath caught as Karen moved silently toward the rose bushes. The trash bag bulged ominously, and with a swift motion, Karen dumped its contents, crumpled papers, broken branches, even bits of rotting food, right onto the delicate blooms. Emily gasped, but Karen's eyes locked onto hers with a chilling calmness. "You shouldn't have looked," Karen hissed, then turned and disappeared into the night. Emily stumbled back, her mind racing. Was this some twisted game? A message? The stakes suddenly felt much higher than mere garden rivalry. Over the next few days, Karen's behavior grew more unsettling. She showed up at HOA meetings, armed with lists of supposed violations, overgrown hedges, slightly uneven fences, even complaints about Emily's choice of paint color. Her words were sharp, laced with thinly veiled threats. At the grocery store, Karen cornered Emily, whispering in a voice low and dangerous, "You're on thin ice, dear. This neighborhood has rules, and I'm here to enforce them." Emily's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about flowers. It was personal. One evening, Emily found another note slipped under her door. This time, the message was blunt and cold. "Clean up your act, or face the consequences." No signature, no HOA letterhead, just a warning. Who was really behind these messages? Karen? Someone else? The neighborhood's usual warmth had turned icy. Emily confided in a few trusted neighbors, but even they looked wary, exchanging nervous glances and avoiding direct answers. The line between friend and foe blurred. Then, late one night, Emily caught a faint sound from her backyard. A metallic clink, followed by the rustle of paper. Heart hammering, she crept outside and found the torn edges of another shredded letter tangled in the bushes. But this time, something was different. Among the scraps was a folded photograph, faded and creased, showing a group of people standing proudly in front of the very house Karen now occupied. In the center was a younger Karen, her smile bright but eyes cold. Emily's fingers trembled. What secrets did this photo hold? Why was Karen so intent on protecting this neighborhood? And what dark history was she trying to bury beneath the roses? The silent war had begun, and Emily knew she had to dig deeper before the next attack came, because this was no ordinary feud. It was a battle for the soul of Maplewood Estates. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale golden glow over Maplewood Estates, but Emily barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the wreckage in her front yard, a fresh pile of garbage dumped right in the middle of her rose bushes. The smell hit her first. Rotting food, spoiled milk, and something metallic underneath. Her heart sank. This wasn't just vandalism. It was a declaration. Emily knelt down, brushing aside torn pieces of paper and broken glass to reveal scraps of shredded letters and what looked like fragments of old HOA notices. Carefully, she gathered the papers, piecing together partial sentences that hinted at warnings and disputes. But the shredded words were too incomplete to make sense. Neighbors gathered nearby, whispering anxiously. "It's got to be Karen," someone muttered, but Emily wasn't so sure anymore. The pile seemed deliberate, a message wrapped in cruelty. But why the trash? Why the roses? Her gaze shifted toward Karen's house across the street. The blinds were shut tight, but Emily thought she saw a flicker of movement. Someone watching. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily decided to ask around. Later that day, she stopped by with Mrs. Garcia, an elderly neighbor known for her sharp memory. Over tea in the sunroom, Mrs. Garcia hesitated before speaking. "You know, Karen hasn't been here long, but this house, it's got a history," she said quietly. "Years ago, before the HOA was so strict, there was a big scandal. Someone on the board was caught embezzling funds, and the neighborhood was torn apart." Emily's eyebrows knit together. "Was Karen involved?" she asked. Mrs. Garcia shook her head. "Not directly, but her family was. I heard whispers that she came back to clean up loose ends. Her way or no way. Maybe this is her way." The thought sent a chill down Emily's spine. Could Karen's vendetta be personal? Was the trash in her roses a symbol, a warning tied to that dark past? That evening, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or the roses won't be the only thing you lose." Fear twisted in her stomach. This wasn't just about neighborhood rules anymore. Someone was watching, and willing to threaten her. Emily's mind raced as she looked back out her window. The roses, once a place of joy, had become a battlefield. Later, that night, she heard footsteps outside. Cautiously, she peeked through the curtains and spotted Karen again, this time clutching a black trash bag. Emily's pulse quickened. Without thinking, she grabbed her phone and quietly recorded. Karen moved to the edge of Emily's garden, hesitating just a moment before dumping the bag's contents onto the fragile blooms. Crushed cans, broken glass, and more shredded paper. The rustling noise echoed sharply in the silence. Emily swallowed hard, watching Karen turn slowly toward her window. Their eyes met. Karen's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "You should have stopped," she whispered. Before Emily could respond, Karen disappeared into the shadows. The recording was shaky, but clear. Emily knew this was the proof the HOA needed, but as she prepared to show it to the board, the phone buzzed again with another threatening message. "You're running out of time." A cold dread settled over her. This was no longer a petty neighbor dispute. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with stakes higher than Emily had ever imagined. And Karen was clearly playing for keeps. The community center was buzzing with anticipation. The evening of the emergency HOA meeting. Word had spread fast. Emily was bringing evidence of Karen's sabotage, and nobody knew what to expect. Rows of folding chairs filled quickly with anxious neighbors, some whispering heatedly, others glancing nervously at the door. Emily sat near the front, her hands gripping the edges of her notebook. She had rehearsed her words, prepared the shaky but damning video, and armed herself with every shred of courage she could muster. Tonight, she would finally expose Karen and put an end to the chaos. The meeting began with the usual business budget, updates, landscaping schedules, But the atmosphere was tense, electric. When the president finally called Emily to speak, the room fell silent. Emily's voice was steady as she recounted the events: the dumped trash, the shredded letters, the broken roses. Then she hit play on her phone. The video flickered on the eyes, big screen. Neighbors leaned forward, eyes widening as Karen emerged from the shadows, bag in hand, dumping garbage over the roses with deliberate cruelty. The room was filled with gasps and murmurs. Karen's face paled, but she quickly masked it with a cold smile. When Emily finished, the floor opened for Karen to respond. Karen rose smoothly, her voice calm but sharp. "I deny all accusations. These are fabrications, attempts to ruin my reputation, because I stand for order and community standards." Her words drew uneasy murmurs. Emily noticed some neighbors shifting uncomfortably. Karen's reputation for being controlling was well known, but no one had seen this side before. Then Karen's mask slipped. A flicker of rage flashed in her eyes. "I won't be bullied by anyone," she snapped, voice rising. "If you think you can turn this neighborhood against me, think again." Tension crackled like static. The HOA board chair tried to regain control, calling for calm and order. But Karen wasn't done. Suddenly she slammed her fist on the table, causing cups to rattle and neighbors to jump. "You don't know what's really going on," Karen yelled, her voice breaking with emotion. "There are things you don't understand about this neighborhood, about me." The room froze. Whispers erupted, questions hanging in the air. Emily watched Karen carefully. This wasn't just tantrum. It was a hint, a dark shadow of something deeper. Before anyone could respond, Karen stormed out, knocking over a chair. The exit door slammed behind her with a finality that silenced the room. For a moment, no one moved. Then a neighbor stood up, voice shaky. "What did she mean? What don't we know?" Emily's heart pounded. Karen's outburst revealed cracks. Beneath the surface, secrets waiting to be uncovered. The meeting adjourned early amid hushed speculation and uneasy glances. Outside, Emily caught Karen's retreating figure. Shoulders tense, lips pressed into a thin line. The mystery deepened. Who was Karen really? And what dark past was she hiding behind her fierce facade? That night, Emily lay awake, haunted by Karen's words. The roses were more than just flowers. They were a symbol in a game Emily barely understood. And if Karen was right, the real battle wasn't just for the neighborhood's appearance. It was for something far more valuable, something no one dared to speak aloud. Emily realized that to protect her home, she would have to uncover the neighborhood's darkest secrets and face dangers she had never imagined. Days passed, and the uneasy calm that had settled over Maplewood Estates was more like a fragile glass, ready to shatter at any moment. Emily kept replaying Karen's fiery outburst at the HOA meeting in her mind. Her words lingered like a shadow. "There are things you don't understand about this neighborhood." What secrets could be so powerful that Karen was willing to tear apart the community to keep them hidden? Emily knew she needed proof, more than just her shaky video. That's when Mrs. Turner, a quiet widow, living 2 streets over, approached her one morning, clutching a small weathered box. "I think you'll want to see this," Mrs. Turner said, voice trembling. "I've been watching too." Inside the box was an old camcorder, one of those bulky things from the early 2000s, and several VHS tapes. Mrs. Turner explained that she had set up a hidden camera on her porch months ago after noticing strange behavior from Karen, hoping to catch whatever was going on. Emily's pulse quickened as they popped the tape into an old player Mrs. Turner still kept. The grainy footage showed Karen pacing outside her house at night, muttering under her breath. Then, unexpectedly, Karen grabbed a box from her porch, carried it down to Emily's garden, and dumped the contents. More shredded papers, torn photos, and something that looked like a thick envelope, right onto the rose bushes. Emily's heart skipped a beat. This was more than trash dumping. It was an intentional act. A message sent in pieces. Then the footage shifted. Karen was shown arguing quietly, but heatedly with someone off camera. The voice was muffled, but the anger was clear. Karen's face twisted in frustration. She shoved the person, who stumbled backward. Emily turned away, stomach churning. The footage ended abruptly. "What else is she hiding?" Emily whispered. Determined to share this, Emily called an emergency HOA meeting, sending the video to the board ahead of time. But then something strange happened. When Emily arrived, the video was missing from her phone. Panic surged. Had someone deleted it? Was someone watching her more closely than she realized? Suddenly, the board chair approached her, face pale. "We can't show that video," he said quietly. We lost it." Lost. Emily's eyes narrowed. This wasn't an accident. Someone in the HOA was protecting Karen, or hiding something. Worse. That night, Emily lay awake, wondering who else was tangled in this web of secrets and lies. Why was the board so desperate to keep the video hidden? What darkness was lurking beneath the manicured lawns? The next morning, a new note appeared in Emily's mailbox, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Emily's hand trembled as she read the threat, but something inside her snapped. No more running, no more silence. If the neighborhood wanted peace, she would have to bring its buried truths into the light, even if it meant facing Karen's fury, and whatever hidden forces she wielded. Because in Maplewood Estates, the past wasn't dead. It was waiting to explode. The sun was high in the sky when Emily spotted Karen, pacing nervously in front of her house. The sharp, cold edge that once defined Karen's composure had softened, replaced by jittery tension. Rumors were swirling after Emily's failed attempt to share the hidden camera footage. And Karen's usual iron grip on the neighborhood was slipping. That afternoon, the HOA held an outdoor community event, an effort to restore calm. But the air was thick with unease. Neighbors whispered in clusters, eyes darting toward Karen and Emily, like wary spectators at a slow-burning war. Emily tried to stay focused, watching Karen closely. When Karen suddenly stormed into the gathering, face flushed and hands clenched, the crowd fell silent. Without warning, Karen erupted. Her voice cracked as she shouted accusations at the HOA board, the neighbors, even Emily herself. "Lies! Betrayal! You think you can ruin me? I'm the one trying to save this neighborhood from chaos." Her tantrum escalated. She knocked over tables, sent plates and cups crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped, some stepping back in shock, others frozen in disbelief. Emily's heart pounded. This was no ordinary outburst. It was a breakdown fueled by something deeper, darker. As Karen screamed, a neighbor called the police. Within minutes, officers arrived, trying to calm the volatile scene. Karen refused to comply, her shouts growing louder and more frantic. When an officer reached out to restrain her, she fought back fiercely, scratching, yelling, flailing wildly. The arrest was dramatic. Karen was handcuffed and led away, still shouting about hidden enemies and dark secrets. The crowd watched in stunned silence. As the police car pulled away, Emily felt a strange mix of relief and foreboding. The neighborhood's worst nightmare was momentarily behind bars. But the questions remained. Why had Karen snapped? What secrets was she trying so desperately to protect? That evening, Emily received a call from the HOA board chair, his voice, low and hesitant. "There's more to this than anyone knows," he warned. "Karen's family. They have powerful connections, things that reach far beyond Maplewood Estates." Emily's stomach twisted. The neighborhood was a battleground, but this war stretched far beyond lawns and fences. Before she could ask more, the line went dead. The next morning, Emily discovered her rose bushes had been sprayed with a strange, oily substance, blackening leaves and petals, killing the blooms in hours. A new message lay pinned to her front door, scrawled in angry letters. "You started this war. Now it's your fight." Emily's resolve hardened. Karen's tantrum and arrest were just the beginning. The real battle for the soul of Maplewood Estates was only getting started. Emily woke to the smell of damp earth and something metallic in the air. Her eyes immediately went to the garden. Her once beautiful roses, now blackened and wilted, victims of a calculated attack. The oily substance had spread rapidly overnight, turning petals to brittle ash. It was no accident. This was a message. But Emily wasn't about to back down. She had spent the last few days piecing together clues from the shredded papers, the camcorder footage, and the whispered rumors. Something was buried beneath the surface of Maplewood Estates, something no one dared to uncover. Determined to find answers, Emily returned to the photo she had found earlier, the one showing Karen with a group of people in front of her house. She noticed something she hadn't seen before. Faint handwriting on the back. It was a date, 10 years ago, and a name. The Rosewood Scandal. Curious, Emily headed to the local library, digging through old newspaper archives. Her fingers trembled as she found it. A headline screaming about a scandal that rocked the neighborhood. A decade earlier, the Rosewood Scandal had involved a secret scheme where the HOA's funds were siphoned off to finance a luxury development project, leaving the community divided and broken. And at the center of it all was Karen's family. The scandal had been buried quickly, with a hush-hush settlement and many residents moving away. But some had stayed, their bitterness simmering beneath polite smiles. Emily realized Karen wasn't just defending her roses. She was protecting a legacy, one built on greed, betrayal, and long-held grudges. That afternoon, Emily returned home, mind racing. She found an envelope slipped under her door, heavier than the usual threats. Inside was a folded letter, typed and formal. "You are meddling in matters beyond your understanding. Leave the past where it belongs, or face the consequences." Emily's eyes narrowed. The stakes were higher than she imagined. As night fell, the neighborhood plunged into eerie silence. Emily's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old community hall at midnight. Come alone." Her heart thundered. This was a trap, or an opportunity. At midnight, Emily arrived at the abandoned hall. Its windows shattered, and walls covered in graffiti. Shadows danced under the weak streetlight. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Mrs. Garcia, the elderly neighbor who had warned Emily months ago. "Karen's not the only one." Mrs. Garcia whispered urgently. "There are others who want the truth hidden. They'll do anything to keep it quiet." Before Emily could respond, headlights flooded the street. A sleek black SUV screeched to a halt. Men in dark suits stepped out, their faces grim. Mrs. Garcia grabbed Emily's arm. "You need to get out of here, now." But Emily stood firm. "If we don't uncover this," she said, voice steady, "they'll keep destroying everything we love." The men advanced, voices low but threatening. "Last warning," one said. Emily took a step back, but her resolve was ironclad. Maplewood Estate's darkest secrets were about to see the light. Emily's heart pounded as the men in suits closed in, but before they could reach her, headlights from several cars flooded the street. Out stepped neighbors, led by the HOA board members, and Mrs. Garcia, holding phones and cameras. "Enough," Mrs. Garcia said firmly, stepping between Emily and the men. "This neighborhood deserves the truth." The men hesitated, exchanging looks, then retreated into their SUV, which sped away. Emily exhaled, relief and adrenaline flooding her. Over the next days, Emily worked with neighbors and a local journalist Mrs. Garcia contacted discreetly. The Rosewood scandal's truth spread like wildfire. HOA funds had been embezzled by Karen's relatives, and attempts to cover it up had left scars on the community. Karen's arrest was just the surface. More investigations revealed hidden alliances and a network determined to protect their interests by intimidation and sabotage. But the community stood strong. Together, they cleaned up the neighborhood, restoring the roses and their gardens. Emily led the effort, planting new life where destruction had taken root. One morning, Emily received a letter from the police. Charges against Karen included vandalism and resisting arrest, but there was more. The police were now investigating the embezzlement claims with renewed vigor. Karen, once a terror, was now a symbol of reckoning. Emily walked to her garden, where fresh blooms blossomed brightly under the sun. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You were right to fight. Maplewood is stronger because of you." A smile spread across her face. The roses had been her battleground, her heartbreak, and now her victory. Maplewood Estates was no longer a place of secrets and fear. It was home,